my USB mic's been shitting out on me or not talking to Final Cut. Wasn't sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Technology. Sweet. Well, we can get right into it then. I feel like we've been trying to set something up for a while, but it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah,
Busy
just
times.
busy time of year and then a couple of projects. And yeah, dude, like I kind of got a tight window too with the 3 kids and helping land those in the evenings.
Yeah. It sounds like lately you and Kevin have a lot of stuff going on too. Seems like
Yeah,
probably getting pulled in a lot of different directions.
yeah. So we just got in. Like we're getting some inventory almost not daily, but probably like weekly. We'll get like 1 or 2 items, and so yeah, it requires a little bit of lift, and then I do the shipping for deer hunter gear as well as my shed antler mounts. So yeah, I did not see me becoming somebody in the e-commerce space, but let alone here I am, 2025.
Yeah. Well, Byron, you kind of led into it with that, but why don't you let the listeners who haven't heard from you, you've been on a lot of different podcasts and different platforms with your own stuff and whatnot, and now with the deer hunter gear and all that stuff. How about you dive into that a little bit and what you got going on recently?
Yeah, so like I started as like me and the guys wanted to film our hunts, and this is 9 years ago at this point. And oh, let's make a YouTube channel, film our hunts. Like, yeah, we're gonna be the next big TV show. And that kind of morphed into me in the content creation side of things. I developed some skills as an editor and videographer, probably more than I'm a decent photographer, but like I would say that's kind of the rabbit hole I dove a little heavier into. That led to some companies like XOP, Lone Wolf Custom Gear, wanting my services to kind of produce media for them, and then I edited for Whitetail Addictions for a bit. And now, I've developed my own YouTube channel, the Whitetail Experience. But then Kevin and I have kind of merged forces just because the power of a few guys working on projects is huge. Yeah, I'm sure you've kind of found out that this is a little bit more of a lift than you anticipated, and some weeks are better than others at getting man hours into these projects. So yeah, like that now, I would say I'm somewhat a content creator, but also some business owner aspect has come into the hunting space for me. Nothing at a full time level, very part time. But yeah, I sell some shed antler mount displays now, and Kevin and I have paired up to. I help with Deer Hunter Synthetics, and then I'm partial owner of Deer Hunter Gear, which is kind of a USA made camo company. And we kind of look at it somewhat as the space has won a lot of bloat when these companies hit the price point, produce overseas, and give the final
Hmm.
mark. And then there's also some aspects to these companies. For example, I used to work with Nomad. They didn't put like a pea zipper in their bibs. I'm like, have you ever been in the deer stand on a cold day for more than 3 hours and not needed to take a pee? Like, there's still some aspects that get missed. And Kevin and I hunt just like everybody else. Some public, some minimal private in a given year, but it's much more relatable than the CEO who has a nice lease that drives four-wheelers right to his stand or goes on a bunch of guided hunts. And there are some aspects to what we want to produce in a whitetail gear system. And we kind of want to be that old Chevy work truck, that basic way. All it's got is cruise and your FM radio. Like, we want to produce a very good that just runs and operates. Some of those finer end bells and whistles with a crisscross zipper over your left shoulder that you can't even reach in the deer stand. Yeah, you've probably added some cost to that garment that there's no real benefit to. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I've landed today. Small e-commerce brand, just starting to launch some companies and work with Deer Hunter Podcast Kevin at a very high level.
Yeah. And I think anybody that's probably followed your journey for the long haul when you first started on YouTube and your Patreon, your podcast that you did for a little bit, and then Kevin's stuff, like the people that you work with, you're all kind of that everyday blue collar. And then you come out with these products or this new brand that you're working on. People don't have to vet you in a way. They know where you're coming from, which is nice to know. Like you just said, a lot of times when things are entered into the industry, you have to guess what are they really, what's their goal, what are they about, and kind of it takes a long time for them to hit the ground running and maybe they don't last. But I feel like it's nice to see a couple of people that people already relate to kind of dive into this, and then I feel like that kind of helps. at least from a consumer standpoint, looking at it from the outside. You know what you're about.
Yeah, there's like a 10-year track record of various hunts and YouTube videos. You kind of get a taste of, in the long form podcast, you kind of learn the person's personality and connect on a deeper level. But yeah, you can see it now. If we drop the ball, we drop the ball. It's out in the open for everybody to see. But we're gonna swing at least.
Yeah, you have to. Well, one of the biggest reasons I've wanted to have you on for some time is I kind of have followed your content for a while. And I want you to kind of break this down and we'll kind of go maybe little by little, but just your approach to hunting, having young kids now. You just had another child recently. So it's like all these things and all your business things going on. You probably have less and less time to get out and you have to become more efficient. You have to kind of dial back your system to a very minimal level. I know you've been dabbling in the trad stuff, like leaning that way a lot more heavily, just like the simplicity of everything, kind of getting back to why you probably started hunting, it seems like, from listening to you talk. And I just kind of want you to maybe break down how your system, how you hunt, your tactics versus your gear and stuff like that. How
Yeah,
you maybe first started.
yeah, I would say so. I don't know. I definitely hunt less than what I used to. I scout less than what I used to. I probably just got through the period of time where I was maximus time in the timber, if you will. Like I would scout. My wife was a nurse and still is, but like in the mid 20s, if she worked a weekend, I would take the bird dog Saturday, get home, jump in the bath, and then go again on Sunday just to keep pounding miles if I had the time. And so I would rack up some serious miles between the ages of 25 to 30. Just, I was out there a lot. And obviously that's pulled back tremendously from off season scouting. I think I only go a handful of times now. And as far as gear and dialing that, that's totally obviously I had a climber, but when Whitetail Experience started, it was the XOP Silver, which was a budget tree stand from them at the time that was the size of the Alpha. And then it was the Hawk sticks, the originals, before Hawk was bought by, what is that? GSM, maybe? Pradco? I don't know. One of those big
For
conglomerates, and
sure.
Hawk was
Yeah.
Hawk. So, and I was carrying all four sticks back then. You fast forward here 9, 10 years later, I take two sticks that way minimal. And yes, they've got double or triple eighters. I think they got triple eighters on them both. And I've picked up this stick bow here the last 2 years, 3 years. I think 3 years ago I hunted just October with it. And then the rut came and I grabbed the compound. And then last year I hunted October, November with it and December. And this year I was fortunate enough to tag out in November. And then I definitely took advantage of the boomstick here recently. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I honestly now am very, and anyone who's followed this, I kind of don't love the overall direction of hunting being like, hey, let's take this thing that is primitive outdoors in nature and bow hunting supposed to be a challenge. And let's just give them this easy button. Let's advance this piece of technology where it's like, dude, this is like more like a video game than actual deer hunting. And the fact that you can not be in the deer woods and learn more and about a deer, and it's like, dude, I'd love to be a zero handicap and play golf twice a year. Like that's like, what are we doing here? There's some aspect to what we're seeing hunting and the direction going and the advancements and guys now locking up major groups of ground, and it's really going towards somewhat the European model because of a lot of these advancements and how efficient guys want to are and just how good the deer hunting gear is.
Right. We'll get into technology down the road here in a little bit, but do you think your system has just progressed with the times? Like when you first started, there was only so many things probably available, I guess, per se. Or is it more what you could afford and that's what was in that price range? Or was it that was everybody was telling you this is how you need to do it, kind of just the space, that's where it was at? Or was it kind of a combination of everything?
Yeah, I mean, you look back at the early Whitetail Experience videos. Like I'm hunting, I think in camo BDUs I got from Kohl's. Dave has a hodgepodge of camo with some we'd kind of been fans of ASAT and Predator back then, and now gear wise, obviously, like that was something we always leveled up. When new tree stands and sticks came along, we were grabbing them. That was key for, and we had a little bit more disposable income. Back then, I think I was rocking maybe $120 boots, and now I've got two or three pairs of nicer Solomons, or I'm looking at maybe buying a pair of Loas. What else? Solos, I think, is the other boot I have upstairs. So, like, yeah, all that gear has stepped up and fit my need a lot more. It's some of what I do is almost like a mini elk hunt, if you will.
Yeah.
Trekking in, let's call it mile and a half ish in the dark, climb one or two ridges of, let's call it 300 to 600 foot elevation each. It's a much more go further type pursuit, if you will.
And when you were 20, 25, you had that, it seems like your drive probably was way more to where like I don't really care what gear I'm using. I'm just out here. I'm young. I have all this energy. I'm just out here ready to learn, ready to hunt, ready to kill something. That probably overshadowed your need to want to be more comfortable and have certain gear. You probably didn't care about that at the time because you just wanted to be out there. Now, with a little bit more time on your hands and that time in the woods is a little bit more strategic, you probably know that this is going to help me. You developed a system that you like, what works for you. Like you were talking about boots. I'm the same way. I kind of, as I've gotten older, know that I need at least one or two really good pairs of boots to survive a season. And when I'm out there, I want to be comfortable.
It's funny. We used to just pile on sweatshirts, or Game Hide, I feel like was a manufacturer. I have one of their jackets because they were supposedly were better for drawing your bow. Nothing was silent. I remember I had the original Predator fleece jacket that zero wind stop back in the day. Um, but
Things were a lot more less technical, a lot less thought out. They were just kind of like, it's got real tree and it's got a bunch of insulation in it. I don't care how much I'm going to sweat, but I'm going to be warm. Just it's not what it is right now. Let's just say that. And
yeah,
it's just been a natural progression. And I mean, there's no better, I think you've said this before, there's no better time to be a whitetail hunter when you look at it like what's out there to be used. If you were to hop into it today, there's so many different things and so many avenues and that you could take and find your, when we were talking styles, whether that's saddle, stand, whatever you want to do, there's absolutely endless possibilities of what kind of system you could create if you hopped into the hunting space today.
yeah. I would say the gear's the best, but the actual outdoor one, finding grounds harder than it was 10 years ago, for sure. The public land boom is here now. The cheat codes of cell cams and drones are here now. Used to be, people would look at you, you could get access just to bow hunt back in the early 2000s. And you mentioned some gear. I had a random thought too. Obviously, clothing skyrocketing, but some of the old school stuff, super deadly, and deadly enough. Like a Z7 from back in the day probably kills deer at 20 yards just as good as today's flagships, if you will. I bought a CVA muzzleloader, for example, when I was like 21, maybe. It's
Yeah.
still in the gun cabinet. And best believe that thing can outshoot me out to 100, 150 yards. There's a famous, my buddy Corey Yager will remember this. We were at deer camp. He put a bottle of Tink 69 at 150 yards. And I do have, I shoot powder with that muzzleloader. Dude, $80 scope. I hit that Tink 69 at 150 yards. There's no way I could pull that off today. Um, but that's, sometimes I think we overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
I'm team Whisker Biscuit in the bow setups for a timber hunter, if you will. A buddy of mine the other day was having trouble paper tuning his bow, and one of his cords on his drop away wasn't working 100%. And I was like, yeah, I'm team Whisker Biscuit for shooting deer. After picking up the stick, I think you realize just how deadly a compound is at 30 yards with a very, I'll call it baseline setup.
Yeah. We mentioned your system kind of changing from maybe 4 sticks in a stand to what it is now. Kind of just break down in more detail. I know you're kind of a guy that does a ton of videos on your channel about different things that you use or come across. Just break down how your kind of progression, kind of becoming more minimal and simplistic with things. You mentioned the 2 sticks, the aiders. Is that weight based? Is it profile like footprint based? Is it like what does that stem from, I guess?
Yeah. So if you just said I'm bow hunting tomorrow, I'm taking the XOP Fly, and I actually like the X2 sticks. I think over the new Hydros. I think I've landed there this year. I got a triple aider off of one of them, and I think a double right now off the second stick. Um, that's how I would start. Now, if I was compound hunting the rut, I might add a third stick where getting super high in trees and being able to shoot 30 yards is very advantageous. Now, I like the 2 sticks. I like a small bag if possible. And that's just, I need to scout more than I can really hunt, especially in the first half of October. After the first hour of daylight, it's probably advantageous for me to start walking than it is sitting in a tree, unless it's less them cold fronts, man. Every year, man, there's like 2 or 3 of those just monumental, sunshiny, coldest morning yet of the year. Like maybe sit the 2 hours that morning. That system, one, I have become way more comfortable hunting low. I've shot my last 4 bucks, probably averaging 6 foot off the ground. This year's buck was like 3 foot. Last year I shot a small buck, but it was 4 or 5 foot off the ground. I've shot some of my favorite deer super low. Bucks and does. Like that is a style I really like from a ease of hang and just super cool encounters. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on the same page with you there on the low stuff because like you said, it seems like those times that I'm out there, everything I get out 1 or 2 days a week, it could be midweek, it could be weekend, but it seems like when you only get out a couple days a week, every single time you go out, it's like it's a brand new season. You got to refigure stuff out because things change so often throughout the year. It seems like every week, the deer is shifting one way or here or there, and you got to kind of be very mobile to get back on them, if I want to put it that way. So hanging low, I've just gotten to do that out of habit. Like you said, you're carrying less stuff. If you want to move, it takes you 5 minutes. If there's 15, 20, and all that time adds up. Have you ever gone the route or thought about like, I've never heard you talk about it before, like one sticking?
No, I think that's a terrible idea. The amount of movement I see with a one sticker um, doesn't seem advantageous when you can use 2 sticks and get pretty high. Yeah, I'm team. I think one sticking is dumb. Uh, Guys are out there air humping the sky to get up a tree. That doesn't seems like a lot of work. It seems like a lot of movement.
Yeah.
And
It seems pretty proven at this point from what I've seen that it's not necessarily any quicker. It more comes down to the amount of gear you're carrying.
yeah,
And from what I've seen, I have a couple buddies that do it. The amount of rope and all the little gadgets and all the things you got to use to do it, I think it kind of maybe it's a wash between carrying 2 more sticks, if I'm honest with you. I don't know. That's just, I'm kind of on the same page there. So I guess that's your stand slash how you hunt system. Do you hunt it all on the ground? And what's your thoughts on that?
um, I I I don't like hunting on the ground most of the time. This year, I saw a buck chase a doe, and I'd seen a buck earlier in the morning. They were 35 yards up the hill, and I was like, "All right, for the last half hour, I was going to be in the woods. Like, I should probably go stand on that trail that hot doe's on. I don't think I got time to move my stand. I can see up there. There's a blowdown. I'm going there. But at the same time, I feel like when you turkey hunt, right, and you sit against a tree, dude, you can't see very far. And when even if you get up like 3 foot off the ground and your standing height now is 9 foot, you can see way further through the timber. And I just feel like when you pick that deer up at like 35, 40 yards, that's working to like 15 to 20, you're just so much more dialed for that opportunity when it's make or break. And even like when I firearm hunt, I bring just the stand or bring just the saddle and jam that thing 3 foot off the ground and climb up just so I can see. Cause sometimes there's little rollers and you can't see the deer when they're in them. I like to get just a touch elevated all the time, even if I'm not bringing a stick.
Yeah. Because it just seems like the natural progression that someone who wants to be the absolute most minimal you could possibly be would be just on the ground. You'd alleviate any gear essentially extra other than maybe a backpack. But that's a good point. You never really think about that one or two times that, or more than that. If you're seeing that a majority of the time, you'll figure that out quick that, man, I wish I was elevated.
Yeah. And I think
And is that,
with the stick, like ambushing a deer is way more advantageous versus like when you're on the ground. Still hunting wise, you got to get them within 20 yards with the stick versus if I had the compound, you can kind of, I feel confident pretty much out to 35, 40. So yeah, I definitely love just the ambush side of deer hunting.
yeah, and then the timber, it's very, very seldom on the ground you're going to shoot past, like you said, 20 yards with, I mean, if you're in deer consistently, you know how it is. They're not in the wide open all the time. You're really sacrificing your spot where you need to be to be able to where you shoot than where you actually need to be necessarily. Um, so that's you kind of touched on enough, I think, about your system as far as stand sticks, pack, what you like. Touch more a little bit on like why you're transitioning more to a trad bow versus compound. Is it your style or what you want to get out of hunting? The mindset and the experience of it all. No pun intended, the Whitetail Experience, but like what does it come more based on your system and how you've been hunting and like it just fits you more, or is it more what you want to get out of the sport and kind of dialing it back technology wise?
I think it's two things. One is that technology aspect to deer hunting. Another, I think it's like I want to play the game at the highest level and be a good deer hunter. And so, like, I think the pureness of the sport came from the recurve and the stick bow. And, like, yeah, I'm going to dabble in that world a little bit so I can become a better deer hunter down the road. And another huge factor is my son. Yeah, the one that's older now, my little boy that's a baby. I mean, he has no idea what the world's fully about or anything. But when I picked up the stick, it looked like his toy bow. All of a sudden he was a lot more interested in shooting those arrows, right? Because the arrows coming out of the stick, he can see. It literally mimics what his toy bow looked like as well. Um, and he's got a small little bear bow, and it's a compound, but it's long limbs and the very small wheels. And part of that was like, if he's going to come up into hunting, maybe he should see dad like out there trying to like, I don't know, have those experiences and be a woodsman and like I'm just saying it like shoot some 100-inch bucks versus trying to only shoot giants. Cause I want him to come up just like and have that fun period in his life where he's just slinging them. I see all these kids holding 140 plus inch deer and I'm like, they don't appreciate it. They
Behind
don't
a
have as much
crossbow,
fun as
probably
going,
too.
they don't have as much fun as the kids that have shot 10 squirrels this fall and then fumbled around and got a deer with a 410 that's a doe or a spike. Like, those are the kids that, like, probably stay with it, you know,
Yeah.
that build the true love for hunting, and so, yeah, like, part of it was my son, and then obviously the overall direction of the sport. If I think crossbows are the worst thing for deer hunting and I'm team no crossbow, I don't like it. It's like, well, why don't I make steps in the total opposite direction to show lead by example, be a leader. I think I think it's kind of a shame that a lot of these like big deer killers um don't pick up the stick after shooting plenty of big deer with the compound. Hey, take it to the next level. Um Hats off to the few that do it. And I think that needs to be because you're only getting more connected to what the sport was truly like started, right? There were some cavemen in a cave, and they strung a piece of hide or something together on a branch that clearly had some flexibility, and they started flinging arrows, and they're like, wait, this is more effective than a spear. And that's how it was born, right? Like, in some aspect. So let's take
Yeah.
steps towards that.
And you can't it's one of those things where I've never dabbled in it. I haven't done it at all. I mean, I've shot my dad's a couple times here and there just for fun. I've never considered hunting with it, but there's no cheating the system there. Like, you can't fault someone for whatever reason that may be, that someone picks up a stick bow and hunts with it or commits to that and that's what they do. There's no cheating it. You're not going to be it's not like I don't want to get too far down like the crossbow rabbit hole, but like there's more time and more skill. It's no surprise to shoot and get good with a trad bow. And I'll tell you this, I've had one opportunity this year on a mature buck that I did capitalize on, but it was with the compound at 42 yards. Like, thinking about my season, I'd still be buckless if I was hunting with the trad bow. There's just, you can't shoot as far. There's so many different things. I don't practice with a bow as much as I probably should. There's so many things that go into that you appreciate, that someone who is open-minded and understands what it actually takes, not just looking at it like, oh, he's using a trad bow just because he wants to be cool and that's the new thing. Someone who actually understands it. And maybe I don't use a trad bow, but I know guys that do, and I know the work it takes and realize the opportunities that I wouldn't get using one necessarily for someone that, I mean, you might not be like as successful right away, or in general, you're probably going to kill less deer and get less opportunities just because it's harder. It just is
Yeah.
to get close to deer.
And there's probably a 50-50 goal out there. If a guy's listening to this, like, if he wants to shoot a little nicer bucks, do that for 5, 10 years, whatever you want to do with the compound. But then, hey, let's pick up the stick. How cool would it be if we saw guys like Levi Morgan, like Lee and Tiff, Seek One, like all the big names, like just pick up a stick for a year or whatever, and just, I get that the big bucks move the needle and those guys got to sell. That's how they make their living, right? And people tend to watch big bucks die more than any other aspect of hunting media. But I just think it'd be cool. I really respect guys like Joe Miles who have dabbled in the stick bow thing after shooting a lot of nice big bucks. I'd love to see more people do that. And
Yeah.
I get it. I think the compound still has its place, right? If you want to harvest some deer, like, dude, it's a great tool. And if you want to chase some bigger ones and have that opportunity, yeah. So, like, I'm still coin flip of what I want to do next November. Best believe in October I'm going to take the stick again. I'm kind of like handing a BB gun to an 11-year-old when I get that stick in my hands. I just want to shoot things. Like rabbits, squirrels, small bucks are still on the menu potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're being a realist about everything too. Like, you realize how hard it is, and like, you have limited time in the woods. I'm sure you're kind of along the mindset like, I want to fill the freezer. I need to fill a couple tags. Like, I'm not just gonna go out there and carry this stick bow around and just not shoot anything. Like, if you put a lofty goal, like, I'm only gonna kill a 160 with a trad bow, like, you probably know in the back of your head, there's a very good chance, or a 99% chance, this won't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just having your expectations be what they should be once you take that step.
Yeah, I think like there's like right, if you said, okay, you got to kill a 140 with a compound, or you can shoot like any rack buck with a stick, there's somewhere in there those challenges start to equal out. Okay, the stick bow guy, for me, I got to get him inside probably like 18 yards, and I can't really get super high in a tree because that shot aspect is a little more difficult. But again, there's a lot more targets to walk by you, right? If you're willing to shoot anything from a 4-pointer to, let's just call it a 100-incher, there's a lot of, and obviously you would shoot at 140 if you walk by too. But there's just like a way more of those deer in the woods. But you got to get them closer. Your ambush points got to be a lot more dialed. The compound guy who's chasing the big ones, he's probably only got a handful of those deer that he's got to get to walk by him. Now, I will say this: both both hunters get to full draw. The stick bow guy's got a whole lot of execution left. The compound guy, if you got your shit together, that helps, if you will. Like when I release an arrow, even if my bow's somewhat out of tune, it's going to hit the block target, right? Like it's going to hit a, let's call it 15 inches by 15 inches block. That
Yeah.
stick bow, I don't know, man. Like I'm pretty dialed out to about 12, 15 yards. I feel like I want them 10. That's
Yeah.
where I feel like I can't miss. This thing's moving at a good rate. But if I step back to 20, I'm just like, get there, buddy. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's an equal challenge out there, and both are great.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of dive into that a little bit because like I can't stand the I don't use a stick bow, but I don't like the slander people are getting that use them that maybe aren't a huge name. And it seems like everybody's getting flack now for he's killed no deer in his life or he's not an expert by any means, but he's just picking up a trad bow because that's the cool thing to do. Just because so it makes it seem like he's a better hunter than he is. And I just don't jive with that narrative, I guess,
Yeah,
because it's not what it's about because there's a lot of people that are seeing the way that hunting's going and are doing it strictly because they don't want to be part of the problem and they want more out of hunting. They want to get back to the experience of it all, in my opinion. It doesn't matter what they're going to shoot. It's that's like irrelevant in my opinion. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up and see what your thoughts were because
yeah.
you've been
I can't say
you're
I've
not part of that crowd, but
can't say I've seen a ton of guys like bitching about, oh, he's picking up a compound or he's picking up a stick bow. Like that's the trendy thing. Man, like this industry's always trending, right? Like we just got through the public land boom. Before that, the big bucks had their heyday when realistically it was outfitted hunts were like literally moving the needle. Guys weren't really hunting; they were just triggermen. Um, what other phases? You know, there's all the micro trends that happen: the thermal hub, the
yeah.
leeward side, the bed hunting, right? Yeah, you're gonna catch.
Where do you see
Uh,
where do you see that going? You mentioned it a little bit, but, like, where do you see the public land, you mentioned it, boom. Where do you see that going? Where do you think we're at in that? And, like, is it gonna get any better or worse? Or, like, in the bigger picture, where do you see that whole thing going as far as I everybody says there's not more people coming into the woods every year, which there's very mixed feelings on that.
right. So I, the public land boom, like I think, like the clickbait aspect of that is on the downward bell curve. Like I think there for a while, like everything clickbaity had to be public land oriented. As far as like people in the woods and like how good's the hunting, it's never going to be what it was 10 years ago. The aspect of especially the cell cam, guys are getting a second piece of property and monitoring it, displacing hunters, whether that be a lease or they buy a second piece. Um, and guys are throwing cell cams up in the public, obviously, more than ever because they don't have to walk in there and check cards to know what's going on. So yeah, it's just there's going to be more hunters like hunting two or three, four, five farms now versus rewind a couple years ago. There was a guy who was only hunting like one or two because you 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 had to have time to physically be at the property. Like there was no reason to buy a second farm if you can't even hunt your first farm as much as you want to be there, kind of thing. And then obviously the public land boom of THP and just the media, like more guys are doing it now, and there's less private land available to knock on the door. So yeah, I just think it's gonna be what it's
Yeah.
gonna be.
It's just a bunch of different things, like you said, just coming to a head, I think. Like, you're right, every like, 5 years ago and still more recently, like, if you wanted to get views, like, you just threw public land in the front or the end of your thumbnail or whatever, and, you're gonna get more clicks just because people just assumed that was harder, that's what I can relate to that, whatever it may be, and I think people are starting to realize once they dive into this, hunting public land and dive into that space and go full time with it, guys that maybe lost their land, their lease or their private land and they have to do it by necessity. And then they consume all this content. They get this maybe false opinion of what it's supposed to be like, or this is how you do it. And then they go out there and actually do it. I think you're finally starting to see that product of people realizing it's not all what it's cracked up to be, which is kind of what I think you meant, and that's what I got out of it, where people are just realizing that it is what it is. Like it's not going to be great all the time. You got to put in a lot of work to be successful, and I think people are starting to, in a good way, I think starting to understand how things are a little bit more. I don't want to get too far down any rabbit holes, but like the cell cam thing, like the technology part of that, are part of the space. So I think you've been pretty outspoken about your opinions, and I think you share an opinion with a lot of people. And I'm just curious to hear kind of what your thoughts as far as, I know there's a, you kind of mentioned cell cams already, but I think I seen it online here this last week about the drone stuff in Indiana.
Yeah.
That's kind of closer to home for you. Have you heard anything about that, or
Yeah.
any details or read
Well,
anything up on that?
yeah. Some hunters got busted in Indiana, essentially flying and hunting. A good way to describe it. But one that hit home a little closer was last year. A piece of public, I caught wind of guys flying the open CRP type fields, brushy fields, stuff like that, and literally going and setting up on the perimeters. And they weren't just they weren't even buck hunting. They were just finding. They might have if they found one in there, but like if they were like literally they were flying and then going and setting up on the edges where that you could get a tree stand in trees. And yeah, that's just I don't know. I'm team no drone as far as that's concerned. I don't like the buck op scope that like literally turns your crossbow into a thermal.
Yeah.
I don't like the crossbows that are 6 inches wide that can shoot better groups than a 30-30 at 100 yards. I think people forget that this is a somewhat tapping into our primitive roots. People forget that this is an outdoor recreation activity. Um, I kind of look at it a lot like Stickum in the NFL, where Stickum was this spray that they would put on their gloves, and the art of a catch all of a sudden didn't matter. And an NFL receiver just had to be fast, big, and jump high. But wait, he didn't have to have good hands, which is like the core of a receiver is the ability to catch the football. But he used
Yeah.
this piece of technology that like was the great equalizer. And so like the art of catching a football needs to be part of a receiver's game, in my opinion. So just like with hunting, I think, yeah, woodsmanship should be a very big aspect to it. You know, even my son, we were out in the woods and we were looking at tracks, and he goes, "Dad, you think it's a buck track?" I said, "Maybe. Is it pretty big?" He goes, "I don't know. Let's just put a camera up." And I was like, "Well, that's not good. That's
Yeah.
not good. You know, let
So do do you see that kind of going the other way at some point? Like kind of like eventually the NFL realized that that's probably not a great idea, and it kind of went the other way.
yes,
Um, or is it, do you think it's just going to get phased out or highly regulated, and then down the road 5, 10 years something else? Now, I mean, if you want to keep that analogy, stick 'em maybe is illegal now, but then they come out with these gloves that are pretty much the same thing, but they can wear those. It's just a different name, different, it's become regular. You think it's just going to be something like that where they totally get rid of technology, whether that's drones or cell cameras, or do you think it's just going to be highly regulated, kind of transition into something else down the road?
ooh, that is a tough call. Now, more states have outlawed stuff and restricted cell cams, obviously. And like, if you look at the Western states, it's very, very much like cell cams are not as, they're seen as like unfair chase. And like, we're not going to have those in our regulations. I think the DNRs of the world are going to have to look at sports like NASCAR, golf, where technology literally needs to really be limited if you want to keep it. Golf, for example, right? If you put a NASA material inside a golf ball and everybody hits it 500 yards, the golf courses have to get bigger, and they can't do that, right? Because there's a limited ground that they've established themselves on. And hunting is
It's
very
like
much
it's like
two things there.
it's like baseball right now. It's like that you can see it happening right now, technology being introduced into a very, what used to be up until probably 5 years ago, a very primitive sport that was relatively unchanged until, the last 5, 10 years. Some things have been introduced and taken out, like, as on a trial basis, but like you really see it now with like the robo umpires trying to phase umps out, juicing baseballs, tackiness of baseball, just things like that to make it more watchable. And they're really playing with that every year, it seems like, where they'll try something and then take it away because based on feedback or what have you. But you can see that happening for sure, like you said, in like NASCAR or golf or stuff like that, where like if you change it too much, you're almost gonna have to change the name of the sport or because it's just not what it used to be.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off if you want to keep going where you were going.
Yeah, there's like two aspects to that too. Is like deer on the landscape and access to ground are both like limited resources that are pivotal in this sport. So you really got to watch it. And anybody thinks that this isn't happening, like my buddy who runs an outfitting services fired his part-time help and bought an additional 50 acres with the savings because of cell cams. He's like, yeah. He goes, I don't need the guys to go check the cards, so I don't need my part-time help. And with the savings, he literally gobbled up more ground that is now restricted. Um, yeah, the drones, the sites that you never shot 62 yards in the backyard. Here's your pin. Like
Yeah.
I do not love the overall direction of the sport.
And I will bring something up that came up last week personally and see what your thoughts are. And it's getting to the point where I don't want to be careful how I kind of put this, but long story short, I went out to grab some cameras I've had soaking pretty much all year. Never checked them once, kind of, just a very basic, cheap SD card camera left in spots that I've never hunted before with the goal of keeping them there all year and using them as far as inventory, not hunting them directly, things like that. And out of 5 cameras, I only found 2 of them. So 3 were gone completely. And the other 2 didn't have SD cards. So 0 inventory and was essentially a wind chime all year. So my thoughts were, and I posted this in a group just to see kind of what people's thoughts were. Whether that was a mistake, I just kind of wanted to see what people's thoughts were on that. And mixed feedback, obviously, you never get one side. And yes, it's public land. I can't complain because it's out there. Like some people don't want them to be out. I get that. Like I'm not huge on cameras or cell cameras either, but a thought that came to my mind was we're doing this to ourselves essentially to where if I can't trust that a camera that I put up 12 feet in a tree that's at the most basic level, like I'm not hunting that inventory this year. Like I like to think that's like not overstepping with technology. Like I'm trying to do it the right way in my eyes, at least. But yet I can't trust that I can't leave that camera out there without either being there or having something part of it ruined, stolen. It almost makes me feel like I have to run a cell camera if I want it not to get messed with. Like, what do you think about that to where like we're doing that as hunters? If I walk up to a camera and see it, if I mess with it, making that guy switch from his basic level trail camera inventory to, well, he's got to run 3 or 4 cell cameras now and switch to cell cams so he feels comfortable leaving it out in the woods. Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think data plan like that's just part of it. Like it happens. I hope those people got a flat tire November 5th, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Data plans, antenna boosters, text messages, thermals on, crossbow. Like I'm just team no tech. It's just
Yeah. And there's another solution the other direction where, you know, or a guy could just say, "Hey, it's not worth it. If I can't leave something out in the woods, I'm just not going to run trail cameras anymore," which is probably what should happen, essentially.
yeah,
But there's 2 ways people could go about it. There's you either see that and say, "Oh, I'm not going to run trail cameras anymore," or you're going to go the opposite direction and say, "Well, I'm done running SD card cams because I can't trust them being out there. I'm going to run cell cameras because people tend to mess with them less with the instant data you could get or the tracking abilities, whatever you
sure.
think, I guess."
Sure. I see it.
It's just something that kind of came to my mind where I could see where people are indirectly pushed that direction just because of experiences like that. Not necessarily like they want to take the easy route, but like just looking at it maybe from a different angle. But yeah, that's a dilemma I'm gonna be in where like I'm probably just not gonna run trail cameras anymore. Or if I do, be way more careful about how I do that, I guess. Um, because having it up 12 feet in the air, like everybody says, do that, but like there's negatives to that, I guess, if
It's a
you've ran trail cameras
yeah,
enough.
pain in the ass.
Right. And like I just look at it like it takes effort for someone to walk by, see a camera that like it's crazy that in today's day and age people are intimidated by a camera where it's never been checked all year. Like I can see a cell camera where people don't like their being seen or filmed in the woods. Like it just feels unnatural. But I'll never understand, like, it takes effort for you to see that and say, "I'm gonna go grab that card or go steal that camera," because, like, you have to get sticks off your back, go over to the tree, climb up to steal it. So, like, there's thought put into that, "Yeah, I'm gonna steal that camera or mess with that camera." It's not like just, "That sucks, I'm just gonna keep walking." Like, it's just it bothers you more because you know that they thought about it and, like, that was their decision, and
Yeah.
you like to give people the benefit of the doubt, at least I do personally, but it's hard to once you see things like that.
Yeah, like I said, I hope those guys had a flat tire November 5th. It's just yeah, that
But then but yeah, then I thought to myself, "Well, I know in the back of my mind that that person's probably just pissed because their season's been shitty and they are not" you know what I mean? And, like, I need to see what's on that card, and then that's I like to think that at least, but who knows? Karma comes around, whatever goes around comes around, so
100%.
so you're just anti-technology.
You gotta draw the line somewhere, and I think I've
Yeah.
hit it. Like, I think we got enough right now, and, that's another thing too with, like, people, you kinda gotta think 10 years ahead, just like how the cell phone went from a flip phone to a supercomputer in about 5 years. Like, what's coming next? There's gonna be, like, armies of drones, right? You're gonna be able to fly 4 or 5 of those things 24/7 almost, like, and the scopes are literally gonna go, like, super thermal and, it's gonna be absolutely ridiculous. The trail cams are gonna be, like, the size of a baseball. They're gonna be you're gonna be able to put them high in the trees, and they're gonna pivot, go thermal. They're gonna be able to detect deer at 50 to 100 yards. And like, if you have two or three on a hillside, it'll have the deer pinpointed. Like, the cost of all this technology, the 18-month rule, it's double the speed and half the cost. So if
Yeah,
you just,
it's crazy how just the natural progression of like everybody wants things to become cheaper, but you don't realize that just makes them more available and you're going to see more of them. Like the forethought doesn't get put into things like you make a $3,000 drone that has thermal. Like this guy just bought a $1.5 million property. Do you think he can't afford $3,000 drone that or a $50 cell camera that you get instant intel? Like you were talking about, how easy would for someone be during like a firearms camp or whatnot? You know, you got your group of buddies, 6, 8 guys. At night, you just and I've heard of this happening. This is why I kind of bring this up, where you have a few cocktails, do all this stuff, and you're like, let's get out the thermal drone, have some fun, put it up on the monitor and the TV with your 8 buddies. The night before or in the middle of the day, and then you all go out and hunt. Like, where do you kind of draw the line in that? Because like that's happening, that's reality. People don't want to accept that that's happening, but you hear stories here and there about it, and it's like if it's happening, you know how it is. Like if it's happening local to you and you know about it, where else is it happening?
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, just taking a second to step back and think about the big picture, think about the future. Like it's very real to you because you have young kids. You want their experience to be what yours was. And it's just very hard. Even me, I'm not old. Like I can still vividly remember my first deer and like youth hunts when I was young. And like I just feel like if I had a kid today, when by the time he is 15, 12 years old, whatever that is, I just don't see his experience being the same as mine. And like you just like to think ahead and think, what can I do to make his experience somewhat of what I had or even better? You always want better for people after you. Like if you're a semi decent human being, it's just, yeah, I guess that's where it all stems from for at least me is what do I want my kids' experience to be? And I feel like if everybody had that and if everybody had that big picture forethought about everything, every decision they make, like how is this going to affect someone else versus how is this going to affect me?
I think it's also like a respect for the game, respect for the tradition. And we've all played pickup basketball is a good analogy on like respect for deer hunting overall. We've all played pickup basketball, right? There's 10 guys on a court. Three of those guys, maybe even four of them, they're never calling a foul on themselves. They never do anything wrong. Then the next like five guys, right, to get to nine, they if they hit your wrist on a jump shot, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I fouled you." But they might drag a pivot foot. They might step on a line, and they might not call it every time. There's generally one guy on a basketball court that loves the game of basketball, wants to win, but wants to win by basketball. And if he slides his pivot foot, he hands the ball over to the other team. Hey, I traveled. Or if a guy makes a layup, misses a layup, and he put his hand on his back, hey, I gave him a little extra. There's generally only one guy on the court that literally respects the game enough to like be the most honest, like self-officiated guy out there. If anybody's played pickup basketball, you know, three or four of those guys, they never call anything on themselves. They'll literally never dribble and never call travel on themselves. And then
If
there's
it means
the middle
if it
group.
means that affecting the outcome of the game, and there's a slight 1% chance that that call right there is going to make them lose, they cannot. Nothing in the world, it's just they're a totally different person. But that same person you talk to them outside of the court or like, at the grocery store, nicest person ever. But like, just that competitive.
Competitiveness,
I
yeah.
know what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah, the competitiveness overtakes like the overall respect for the game, if you will. And I think that's true in hunting, right? Like somebody's got to be the adult in the room occasionally.
you got to have some self control and dial it back and like what is my actions doing? Like I can think of a story I heard one time about a game warden. He was duck hunting or something like that and like shot the wrong species or shot one over limit and ended up writing himself a citation. Like someone like that, like he's in that career, like he cares. Like they're in it for the right reasons because not a nobody is going to do that. You know what I mean? But one last thing before we kind of wrap it up, I want to give you an opportunity to, I don't know, I haven't heard, you probably have went over this on other things, but I kind of want to hear about your deer this year or your Tradwell buck, like
Yeah,
in short, I
yeah.
guess.
Short and skinny of it. Off season pin and general area I've hunted before. What was it? It was like maybe the first week in November. I went to go check this kind of check this bedding area out, this thicker hillside, big woods hunt. And I literally took like a few steps towards the thicket and jumped the doe. I said, "Hup, they're in here again." Because sometimes you never know. You got to check. So that let me know. Okay, hey, I think I could hunt in 2 days. I said I'll come in and I'll be like 150, 200 yards from here. But I had an off season pin marked where I wanted to hunt, and went in there on a rainy day. It was stopping right at sunrise. Had a really good hunt where I saw a single buck. Uh, uh, a buck came in jumping a doe, and that's when I jumped out the tree and went up there 35 yards. It kind of cost me. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm sitting there. It's 11:30 noon, and I was gonna hunt till noon that day. And I start hearing a dog just barking and howling. And I'm like, I didn't think anything of it. There's plenty of single wide homes in the area. The dog got free, and I start hearing the leaves, and I'm like, oh, here comes the deer drive. So I stand up. I'm on the ground, and some does bust through this top, and I look over, and no joke, the tree I left, there's a main trail right on it. A giant is coming down that trail, and I'm 35 yards up the hill, and I'm like, son of a bitch. Should have stayed in that tree.
Yeah.
I get the full draw on him, and he kind of bounds and goes away. I never really had a clearing. I needed him to come like another 20 yards, and he'd have been there. And I thought I had him. When I seen him, I said, dude, he's running from this dog. His tongue's out. Like, this dog performed the best deer drive of all time. But I was like, I'll be in here. I think I had to go to work the next day, or it might have been the very next day. Came right in there, and I shifted one tree over into this small oak. It's literally as round as a baseball bat, and I was like 3 foot up. But I had a bunch of branches, and I kind of used a can jam to like cinch them together to kind of push them a bit out the way. And I couldn't shift too quick in that tree because it was kind of sketchy. You know, Buck cruised that 35-yard trail again. I was kind of cussing myself. I said, because going in there, I was like, do I hunt up where I've seen the last couple deer, or do I hunt the trail the big one was on? And I chose to hunt the
Yeah.
trail the big one was on. I kind of think that was a wrong call, honestly. I think I'd seen enough deer that up that hill 35 yards that was the spot to be. So that buck works that trail. I give him a old toot toot on the grunt tube, and he looks and he starts coming in. And I'm thinking he's going to take the main trail. Well, he veers, and I'm like, oh shit, he's going to pop out right here, like 10 yards, and it's do or die. So I draw the bow, and he kind of hurt it because my elbow hits one of them small branches. He looks, and you can see this on the video. He takes 2 more steps, and his front half clears this like basketball sized hole between a couple branches and a vine. And I send it. And that's what I wanted, man. Like, I wanted that like primitive kill. Last year I shot one at like 17, 18 yards, 6 foot off the ground. This year, like 10, 3 foot off. Like, it was close.
Yeah.
He ran away. I didn't get a pass through. And I picked up the blood trail an hour later. And he went about 200 yards, and he lost me, but he went 30 yards and had piled up at that point. But yeah, I spent several minutes trying to figure out what he had zigzagged after that 200-yard blood trail. Pretty easy tracking. Um, and yeah, he was there. And then I had talked to Dave on the phone. We spent the next couple hours. We linked up and then packed him off that hillside. I was in there a good ways.
Yeah.
Made for a great day though. Like, just you can't, it doesn't get any better than a buddy kind of helped me quarter. He didn't pack much weight because Dave's coming off an ACL surgery, but he mountain man back in there, and it was nice for the quarter process because he's a little more familiar with like butchering and quartering. Um, so yeah, that was cool, man.
So you're big on the. I'll probably transition to this eventually, because the deer I got this year, we ended up dragging out. You're big on the quartering out
I'm
in like hill country.
there's probably a plus minus of like 3/4 a mile. Is it mostly downhill? Like you think about it, but I had too far to go and too bad of country, if you will. Like, it was just too steep that I didn't feel comfortable dragging that deer even with a jet sled. But I've drug out plenty of deer, especially under a mile, even solo, and that honestly sucks. But yeah, there's a plus minus there.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'd call that, regardless of the size, successful, especially when, like we talked about, how when you realize how difficult trad hunting is. Like, think about all the people don't realize like how many opportunities. Like, people look at the size of the deer and they're just like, that's immediately what they judge you on, not how great of a shot you made, the things that all went into that hunt, the deer that you didn't have opportunities at because you needed them to be 20 or in. Like you just talked about, like how many decent bucks on, if you're out there enough, that you just don't get opportunities because they're a little too far. Definitely crossbow or compound range, just not what you feel effective shooting at, which is commendable because you're not just out there flinging arrows either, because we all know how expensive those are. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I'm very appreciative that you took the time. Obviously, it sounds like your house is waking up, so I'll let you tend to that. Let everybody know where they can kind of follow your stuff. I know you're working pretty hard with Kevin over there on deer hunter stuff, so let people know where they can follow along with that, where they can find that stuff, what you got going on with your kind of products that you do too.
Yeah, if anybody wants to give us a follow, Whitetail Experience on all major socials. And then as far as, we just launched Deer Hunter Gear, USA made, American technical bow hunting gear, if you will. We only got, I think, 4 SKUs on the website right now, but hoping to advance that as the time comes. And then I obviously sell some shed antler mounts that are very affordable. So if you're just wanting to put a few up in the garage, the hook reverses, which is kind of nice to accommodate left right beam antlers. And yeah, it is. That's been an awesome um, to see guys put those up in their man caves or garage if you got a handful of sheds laying around. But yeah, you can find those. They're all linked on my social. But yeah, I appreciate it, Jake.
Yeah, not a problem. And if I would highly recommend people you do like a I don't know if you're going to continue doing it, but like on your Whitetail Experience channel, I've always loved when you drop your season. You don't do like individual hunt videos. You do like this is my season.
Hmm.
You do like one video how your season went and kind of like everything that goes into it, which I appreciate because you don't really understand what kind of goes into someone's season or really understand what it means. You get way more emotion, in my opinion, when you understand what all the things that happened. You know, you show everything, like the ups, the downs, everything, and understand kind of what all went into that harvest or not even. But I'll let you go. I appreciate you hopping on. I'm sure we'll talk again, but good luck with everything you got going on.
Thanks, Jake. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, not a problem.